나처럼 groovy하게 나처럼 groovy하게.
About a week ago, I asked you guys to share your K-pop opinions and confessions for a video, so today I'm going to be reacting to them. I had a lot of confessions, so I'm really sorry if yours didn't make it into the video. I chose responses that I thought were somewhat controversial and warranted debate since I'm curious to hear your thoughts on them, and then I added some funny confessions at the end since I didn't want to end this video on a heavy note. If you can't handle a mature discussion about these topics, don't watch this video. I'll be summarizing the longer confessions, but I'll include screenshots if you want to pause and read the whole thing. Also, I'll be including timestamps in the description box, so if you think that any of these topics may be uncomfortable to listen to, please feel free to skip past them. Let's get started. Most K-pop idols have had plastic surgery or gone through cosmetic procedures. South Korea is commonly known for it, but K-pop fans will go like puberty, natural. Plastic surgery is not something you should be ashamed of. I agree with this. South Korea is literally nicknamed the plastic surgery capital of the world, and especially in an industry which places so much emphasis on visuals, it wouldn't surprise me if the majority of K-pop singers had some sort of work done. It's not a secret either that companies might encourage their artists to get surgery, and let's face it, I'm sure trainees desperate to debut would consider getting surgery a small price to pay, especially if it increases the likelihood of achieving their dreams. I'm not trying to insinuate that every idol has had surgery, and I'm not ruling out the possibility of natural changes, but there are some idols who fans desperately try to defend when it's very obvious they've had some sort of cosmetic procedure done. And to me, this vehement defense seems a bit unfair. Getting plastic surgery doesn't make you inherently inferior as a person, and for people to insist that their faves would never implies that they look down on people who have done these sorts of procedures. The next confession sort of piggybacks off of this. I think it's important for us to recognize that we don't have access to the same resources that K-pop idols do, so I don't think we should feel bad for not looking as good as they do. All these singers have teams of people designated specifically with the task of making them look good, from makeup artists to stylists, and yes, even in some cases, plastic surgeons. The NCT concept is not difficult to understand. People just want to complain about everything that's unusual. I kind of agree with this. I don't think the subunit concept is hard to follow, but I think the lineup changes is what makes it confusing. For example, SM hasn't included WinWin in 127 for several comebacks now, but they also haven't said he's no longer part of the subunit. Another example is with Dream. They made Mark go through the whole graduation process, only to later scrap the whole idea and make Dream a fixed unit with the original lineup. While I'm happy that they made Dream a fixed unit, it's this lack of commitment to an original concept which makes NCT's concept a little hard to understand. Also, the constant addition of new members and shifting of old members to new units was something that I personally got kind of deterred from. I actually really like the subunit idea, but I think people would complain about it less if SM had a clear lineup plan for each unit and a fixed number of members, sort of like with 17 subunits. Stop speculating about idols' sexuality and finding proof of what they are. Calling someone a queer icon and wanting them to be queer for representation is a bit problematic, especially considering some idols might be homophobic. Also, you might out them against their will. I agree with this. I think people need to stop speculating about idols' personal lives in general for several reasons. One, in the K-pop industry, even being exposed for being in a heterosexual relationship can literally end someone's career. Imagine the kind of ostracism an idol would face if they were outed. Two, it can make idols uncomfortable being shipped with someone who's just a close friend. It seems invasive to overanalyze every interaction a pair of idols have with each other and might lead them to distance themselves to avoid rumors. 3, as this person mentioned, many idols haven't spoken up about how they feel about LGBT rights, and they may not even be supportive of the community. 4, it's just none of our business. If someone wants to reveal that they're dating, we should be supportive, and if they don't, then we should be respectful of their privacy. Okay, so I received several comments about cultural appropriation, so I'm going to break down my thoughts on a couple of them. Most of K-pop cultural appropriation isn't mocking or harmful. Terms such as appropriation and racist are thrown around too loosely, and they'll soon lose their meaning. I kind of agree with this. Personally, I don't consider idols using items from my culture to be appropriation, as long as they aren't being disrespectful or acting like it's just a trend. But I obviously can't speak for everyone, so if someone gets offended by its use, I think they have the right to call out the artist or the company. I really don't think most cases of appropriation warrant quote-unquote canceling an artist, though, and trying to cancel every artist who may not even realize what they're doing is offensive is what diminishes the meaning of appropriation. I think a lot of the time artists might just be a little ignorant, not racist. So for me, if an artist is willing to acknowledge that they made a mistake and grow from it, I won't hold it against them. There have also been some instances, though, where fans would spread accusations of appropriation for something that definitely wasn't appropriation to begin with, which also makes it seem more like a joke than a serious offense. So I would definitely recommend for you guys to fact check before spreading those types of rumors. Most companies want large international fan bases for their groups, but at the same time they don't care about them. Only they apologize for something when it creates problems for the Korean fan base. This is so true. For me, I find stereotyping to be far more widespread and off-putting compared to most cases of appropriation, but companies rarely address stuff like this despite numerous fans calling out their artists for it. They're so quick to respond to every minor rumor that might offend their Korean audience, but when it comes to addressing offensive behavior to their international fans, there's radio silence. How do you expect your groups to sustain an international fan base when you don't even take their feelings into consideration? We're literally asking for the bare minimum. Also, not letting artists apologize is a crappy but smart business tactic. If an artist doesn't apologize, most of the time fans assume it's because of the company, but in a lot of cases we don't really know if they care enough to issue an apology or not. I don't hate Mamamoo, in fact I stan them, but with their recent a.c.e comeback, the stages, the Chinese-themed one was uncomfy for me since I'm Chinese myself, threw me off a little. I won't unstan them, but I hope the next comeback would be more appropriate to enjoy. I'm scared of N-citizens. I'm Muslim and I felt like the Make-A-Wish comeback was offending to me, but I didn't give any hate to the boys, but some N-citizens asked if I was even Muslim and told me that I shouldn't be offended. It still haunts me to this day. For those of you guys who sent in confessions dealing with your own experiences regarding this topic, I just want you guys to know that these are all very valid feelings, and as long as you're respectful in expressing your opinions, then others should be respectful in hearing them. I find it incredibly annoying when fans who don't belong to my culture try to decide what I shouldn't find offensive. I got several mixed opinions about Red Velvet's Rapline. Look, I will admit Red Velvet does not have the greatest rap line, but what matters is that their voices suit the vibe their raps need. I couldn't imagine someone like CL or Soyeon, who I think are fantastic rappers, doing the rap from Ice Cream Cake or Dum Dum. At the end of the day, their voices fit the song, so for me it doesn't matter that they aren't technically that great at it. I wish Jonghyun wasn't stylized into an angel or the moon. I wish he got respect for the flawed but loving and talented human being he is. I wish shiny content on YouTube didn't always get RIP Jonghyun comments below. On the other hand, I'm thankful that the tendency is to sanctify him because of the total refusal of Korea to deal with its suicide rate problem, and ignore the artists and their groups afterwards and just draw a veil of silence over them would have spelled out SHINee's end as a group. I don't know if I have the right to comment on this since I wasn't a fan of SHINee before his passing, but I suppose I'll share my 2 cents anyways. When I was getting into SHINee, I still really wanted to get to know the kind of person Jonghyun was because he was an amazing artist, and I know a lot of my faves really looked up to him or had a strong bond with him. But I felt like sometimes it was kind of hard to see beyond his depression because the top comments on every video I would watch would be about his passing. I think people have every right to be upset and to share their feelings with other fans who are going through the same thing, but I also felt like it made it harder for me to understand who he was when everything kept circling back to this topic. I do think it's good for people to talk about it in the context of bringing awareness to a stigmatized topic, but at the same time, he deserves to be respected beyond his depression as well. But what concerns me the most about comments like this, and maybe it's just the cynic in me saying this, sometimes I wonder how many of those comments are from a place of genuine emotion versus how many are just done to get likes. I'd hope that everyone commenting has good intentions, but given the internet, unfortunately, you never really know. Okay, so this is a really long explanation, and I recommend pausing to read it, but the gist of it is that some stans need to stop complaining about how their faves are being mistreated, especially XOLs and N-citizens, since they do get a lot of solo activities and a lot of unit activities. And then they also said that SM has screwed up quite a few times, and if it was a mistake on SM's part, then of course I don't support it. I agree, SM stans do need to stop complaining about everything SM does. There are definitely times when the company absolutely deserves to be called out, but it seems like no matter what they do, people are just going to complain. While I think there have definitely been moments where EXO and NCT have been mismanaged, on the whole they've received a good amount of attention throughout their careers. I know why EXO-Ls were complaining in 2019 when the promotional period for Obsession was extremely short and they didn't properly restock albums, but I don't get people who are complaining about a lack of EXO content now and saying EXO is being mistreated when half the members can't even promote with the group. EXO's members still have a ton of solo activities, but a lot of people don't even bother to check it out unless if it's their bias. The only valid reason I think EXO-Ls have for complaining about SM right now is the way that they handled rumors about Chanyeol. As for NCT, I think the way SM treats certain members, especially their foreign idols, is questionable, but I don't think the group as a whole is being mistreated either. My biggest concern is that members are being overworked while others are cast to the side. Even with Revelovs, I saw so many people complaining about the group not having a comeback this year, but I genuinely think it had more to do with Wendy's situation, since she wasn't even able to make public appearances until recently. I've been extremely disappointed in the way that EXO-Ls in particular act towards other SM artists, especially towards Super M and aespa. You guys complained so much about Super M, and all it did was make Baekhyun and Kai feel bad. There's a difference between voicing your concerns and sending hate to a group, and telling them to disband definitely crosses that line. And with aespa, people were so pressed that Karina was in an ad with Kai, as if every SM group wasn't used to promote EXO when they debuted. There's definitely problematic stuff SM has done, and I'm not trying to excuse it, but overall, I think it's best to let the members speak for themselves, rather than jumping to conclusions about what they want. EXO in particular have called out SM on occasions when they thought certain decisions were unfair. They are perfectly capable of speaking up for themselves, so I don't think we should just assume things on their behalf. I think about K-pop all the time to keep my brain occupied, otherwise I feel absolutely awful, and when I start thinking about myself and my life, I can't let myself go down certain thinking patterns or I'll do something to myself. I'm so sorry you feel this way. I feel like some people use K-pop as a form of escapism, and it's helped them to at least feel some semblance of peace within their lives. At the same time, though, I think getting too consumed in K-pop can also lead to more toxic thoughts, especially getting involved in social media. I really hope you're able to find some other outlets in addition to K-pop to bring some joy into your life. And if any of you are feeling down or feel like you need someone to talk to, please feel free to reach out to me on social media. I know especially in this time things have been rough, so I really hope you're all taking care of yourselves. And if you ever need a friend, just please feel free to reach out to me. I kind of feel like K-pop collabs are useless. K-pop groups already have 4+ people that have to share lines, and squeezing in another person just takes away those from the members. I get that they could get exposure because of the collab, but does it work though? I agree. I think Western collabs face one of 3 problems. One is that the collab is quite frankly forgettable. and I think Ice Cream and Boy With Love both fall in this issue. With Ice Cream, the problem is that the song's composition is just lackluster. Boy With Love is at least relatively memorable as a song, but let's be real, no one thinks of Halsey when listening to it since she barely had lines in the music video version. 2 is that the featured artist clearly doesn't care about the group they're performing with. For example, the infamous Jimmy Kimmel performance where Monsta X performed Who Do You Love with French Montana. 3rd is that the company just does a terrible job in promoting the song. For example, Written in the Stars by Wendy and John Legend is genuinely such a beautiful song, and you'd think SM would showcase the hell out of it considering how big a name John Legend is. But I don't even think I remember them posting about it on Instagram. I feel like many K-pop companies have become fixated with this idea of Western success, and I guess in their eyes, Western collabs are an easy path to success, and while it may give their groups more recognizability, I genuinely believe they can't make it big in this way. BTS and Blackpink aren't popular because they suddenly dropped a song with a big-name artist or translated one of their songs into English. They're popular because their pre-existing music and concept resonate with Western audiences. I remember last month having a Jonghyun photo card, I'm so sorry if I said his name wrong, on my phone case. One of my friends asked me, "Who is this?" I randomly said he was my boyfriend. He believed me and said that we should meet one day. I actually have kind of a similar story. There was this one time years ago when my friend's sister took my phone and she saw I had a picture of Chanyeol as the lock screen. She asked me if he was my boyfriend, but I told her no. But that's the reason why I no longer use pictures of male idols as my lock screen. At this point, I've mistaken Super M for saying sperm so many times that I've started to instinctively call them sperm. Look, whoever thought it was a good idea to name this group Super M, I just want to talk. I used to think that Idol School, the survival show that created Fromis 9, was a special type of school that undergraduate idols attended in order to not garner too much attention in normal public schools. Honestly, that sounds like a logical conclusion to make. I'd probably think the same if I hadn't been aware that Fromis was created on a survival show. I thought netizens were N-citizens. Honestly, I thought the same thing too. I used to think that GWSN and wjsn were the same group. I didn't think they were the same group, but I would always get them confused for some reason. There's this guy who goes to my school called Kai, and one day I accidentally called him EXO. What did he respond with though? Did he know who EXO was? I'm kind of curious about this. I found this out a couple days ago, but fan cafes aren't actual physical cafes. How did I spend 4 years not knowing this? I thought the same thing when I was introduced to K-pop. I was expecting some coffee shop in Seoul where fans would gather and talk about their favorite groups, and sometimes the artist would maybe make surprise visits. I was so disappointed when I learned the truth. These are all the confessions I had time to include since I didn't want to make this video monstrously long. Thank you so much for responding. If I didn't include your comment, it's because I wanted to focus more on opinions that I thought posed a debate. I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you so much for watching.